Hey, call the session to order. Thank you for, I don't know if anybody's online, to Menlo Park Fire Protection District Board of Directors meeting on December 16th, 2025 at 7:01. Roll call, Michelle?
Director Bernstein?
Present.
Director Bloom?
Here.
Director Crawley?
Present.
Director Solano?
Here.
Director Jones?
Here. Can we now stand for the pledge of allegiance? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kickoff time, okay. We had our closed session meeting and that's nothing to report out from that particular meeting at this point in time. Any public comments?
We have no public comment.
No public comment. I'm disappointed again. Okay, we'll start off with item number one, report of the fire chief for discussion and direction.
Thanks, Director Jones and members of the board and members that are, and members of the public that are on Zoom. Happy to share with you my December fire chief's report. We'll start with a Station 1 design update. You'll get a little bit more information in item 6 that the board is going to be hearing tonight related to Station 1. But just kind of looking back at what's changed, what's happened in attachment A. As you know, just before the last board meeting, we met with the planning commission, had positive feedback on that. I think that's talked about in item 6 a little bit. We're hoping to award a contract with CEQA, planning and government review, a consultant in January. So great. The current schedule has changed with an estimated completion date in February of 2031, so 3.5 years. And then also, we had a cost estimator that the architect brought in, a professional cost estimator gave us a new updated cost that is 115 million, so below what was originally projected. Primarily, the biggest saver in that was the fact that we are not going to phase the project, right? We're going to demo this all at once, and that saves us not only time, but also a significant amount of money. So we'll chat a little bit more in item 6 with the board about our next steps. Update on the community engagement unit. They are busy right now. Our community engagement unit is very busy with our toy drive, coordinating that. We've got a couple more nights of collection and sorting, and then where the big toy giveaway for 750 kids is going to occur on Thursday and Friday. Yeah. So
Where is that going to be?
I think it's happening.
It's St. Anthony.
St. Pat's?
St. Anthony.
St. Anthony.
Okay. St. Anthony's.
Can I answer just a quick question?
Sure.
Does the union no longer do that? It's now done by the community engagement person?
No, it's a combination. It's really driven by Tyler Ostowski is on the labor side of things, but our folks, Heather and Amandi, are so passionate about connecting with the community, they are involved too. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Some things go. Insert session. And in 5, I came out and visited them. They had their annual CERT theme holiday party at the Arriaga Center just this past week on the 11th. Continue doing some classes and trainings. They participated in a training session over at Snowflake, which is a company that's just right across from our admin building. Did some emergency response team training with them, monthly CPR and stop the bleed classes, an APA academy with high school students learning about careers in the fire service they participated in. Also participated in a Cal OES event at Meta that was focused on earthquake safety and was accompanied by the Cal OES simulator, and then a couple tours and visits. New development update. not a lot has gone on in the last month, but that said, Chief Schleiss and I are having kind of a preliminary Zoom meeting tomorrow with Presidio Bay. They are the people that developed Springline and also the developers of the USGS facility. So they want to just have an initial conversation, kind of get our feedback on some of their ideas. Really early stages, but that is happening. I wanted to follow up at our last board meeting on the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors presentation on consolidation. The day at our last meeting, they had just met that morning. I went back and watched the presentation online on video. I'll just start off just at the beginning. After watching the presentation, it felt like there was absolutely no threat to us and any kind of rogue or any kind of coup to take us over. What it was is Local 2400 has been pushing the idea of a countywide fire department consolidation for probably a decade and a half. And I believe the Chair Canepa on the Board of Supervisors wanting to do a presentation. And so it was the VP from Local 2400 that did a PowerPoint presentation there. It was done under presentations, not under a regular agenda item. And there was almost very quickly some pretty significant pushback from at least 3 of the board members. That was Supervisor Spire, Mueller, and Gauthier were all surprised by it. It really hadn't been agendized. They weren't aware of it. They really had asked a lot of questions about whether city managers and fire districts were aware of this presentation, if there'd been any buy-in, and they were concerned that it was kind of this top-down thing, and they just were worried there was some kind of power grab. And they mentioned a couple of times that if anything like this was going to happen, it really needs to be grassroots, right? And so they had no interest. I felt bad for the poor guy from Local 2400 that was up there. Obviously there's efficiencies in combining government services together. You look at it across the county, would it be more efficient to have a single county fire department? Perhaps. Would it be good for our fire district? Probably not. Right? When you look at what our resources are, and I don't think that there's a way that it would necessarily make services for our residents better. But it was not a short, the presentation wasn't very long. The conversation afterwards was lengthy. And like I said, I don't remember specifically what the next steps were, but I think the message was to anyone that has interest, better go talk to the cities and get, if you want to do this, collaborate with them, get the cities on board, et cetera. So I don't think that's something that labor's gonna get with. Right.
So I watched that video too, and actually of all of the supervisors, Supervisor Spear was very much against it, very much to the point where, she she was being actually pretty critical. I think the action item, Mark, was that Supervisor Mueller wanted to bring this back to some strategic planning session thing in there. But I don't know if there's any buy-in from Spear or even Corzo for sure. The other 3, I think they're open to listening, but I don't know how much support they were. But for sure, Supervisor Spear was very much against it. And I talked to her office about that too.
So I think it unpleasantly surprised a number of people, the fact that it just kind of showed up. And like I said, I don't imagine it's probably going to come back up. I think now that you mentioned that,
But it might go into their strategic
talk
plan.
about some kind of committee to discuss
Yeah,
it, but
that was Supervisor Mueller's suggestion, which is, I'm not even sure if there's appetite for it.
so I will make sure we stay on top of that and see if anything else develops, but for right now, it feels like it was dead in the water.
Did y'all have a chiefs meeting with this topic on there?
We did not.
Okay.
JPA Management Committee, we met, again, this is the small management committee, not the full board. We met just to talk about some issues we were having with our, basically our contractor that provides radio services for us. So we're working on putting out an RFQ to actually have someone come and evaluate the system, and also looking to see if we can have kind of, right now we have 2-3 contractors that work on this. We're gonna attempt to see if we can't just have a single contractor, so we can consolidate that and have just one individual company that we go to for those issues.
What JPA is that?
That's it, the ALS JPA, the one that Director Solano sits on, and I sit on the management committee that's made up of myself and Chief Myers and Clay Holstein and the Burlingame city manager, and I remember her name, Lisa. And I think Rico, the mayor from Burlingame, but most of the management decisions are occurring in that management committee.
San Bruno.
Yeah, San Bruno, sorry, yes. But stay tuned for more information on that. Ecumenical Hunger Program, there's been a great need there. We since our last meeting have had 2 volunteer events down there where we helped out. One was 2 days before Thanksgiving, providing full meals for, I don't know how many people, it was a lot. Turkeys and eggs and milks and stuff like that. And then again, we went, that was on November 25th. And then again, on December 9th, we had another group that went down there to help them, especially with the holiday seasons coming. The need is just greater than ever. So always good to connect with our community down there, and the need always exists. I mentioned already about the holiday party. For the CERT group, we did have our holiday lunch yesterday. Thank you to all of our board members for attending. Always a really nice event with our retirees and our active folks, and recognizing our employees' years of service too. A reminder that we're going to have badge pinning on January 22nd. Deployments, I believe everyone's aware. I sent an email out when we deployed our Type 3 FEMA team up to Washington State. They were deployed with 2 other California teams, one from Oakland and one from Sacramento, along with a Cal OES Swiftwater team from Marin County. It was really interesting to see that they were actually almost pre-positioned up there. So FEMA was a lot more proactive than they were when we had the tragedies in Texas with the flooding. And I don't know how or why it happened, but it happened, which was great. And so our folks are up there currently staged in the Marysville area in Northwest Washington. For us, it's a team of 45. And they have some pretty significant weather coming in. I know that one levee has failed up there. They're waiting to see if things will hold over the next couple of days, and just doing a lot of training and preparing and hoping that they're not deployed, but we'll see what happens. So I'll keep you up to date if anything significant happens with their deployment.
Is that the water rescue group, did they go, or?
It was our Type 3 FEMA group, so they have water rescue. They bring their John boats with them, the kind of flat bottom boats, so they have full capabilities for doing water rescues like they did in Katrina and things like that. And there are other water rescue resources up there too, so there end up being swift water issues and stuff. But they are fully capable of doing water rescues. And then I have a FEMA update here. This was actually looking kind of positive related to FEMA. A report, a commission had been put out or created by the president, the FEMA Review Council, and they were set to release a report and actually had a meeting set for December 11th. I think the report was leaked out. It sounded pretty promising. They were not proposing to get rid of FEMA. They were proposing to create FEMA 2.0, as they called it. Some of it quite a bit of staff, maybe by 50%. But the report still was pretty fully supportive of the task forces, so, which was good. That said, I don't remember if it was the night before or the day of, the meeting was postponed. So who knows why or whatever, so we're still waiting for that meeting to be reconvened, but it was nice to see that the committee had recommended keeping task forces.
Mark, so the deployment to Washington, that came from, to Washington State, came from Washington DC, correct?
Yes,
Right, so,
the approvals came through Secretary No's office.
okay,
I
so
don't
they know the benefits of having these FEMA teams.
I think so, I
there.
think they do.
Yeah.
Right, and I think they, you know, after watching what happened in Texas, they're aware of the need to move quicker.
Yeah,
And there was, at the time of the Texas deployments, anything over, any expenditures over $100,000 had to go directly to the secretary for approval. And that you gotta imagine that you just can't have that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's almost nothing to
yeah,
get that level.
yeah. Thank you.
So, that is good, and outstanding staff reports, we now have. We have two less because two were taking on this agenda. And so 3 are remaining: electrification of fire service vehicles, traffic calming, which is a newer one on our agenda. And also still the conversation about grants in our E-Prep groups. And then one incident of significance in our district was just a structure fire in East Palo Alto on Camellia. And that was about 2 weeks ago. And that is it for my chief's report.
The Woodside Plaza thing too,
Yeah, not in our district, but yes, that was pretty significant.
across the street from our district.
Yes. That's it. Back to you, Director Jones.
Okay. If there's no more, any questions to the chief, we'll move on to item number 2. Which is, we're gonna approve, 2 and 3, which is consent calendar items.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Motion been made by, Virginia and seconded by Rob. There's no other questions, I call for a vote.
Bernstein,
Alright,
Director Blume.
Aye.
Director Crawley.
Aye.
Director Swanson.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye. So we'll move on now to item number 4. Which is, Betsy? Chief?
I will start it off and see if the board has any questions, and if they see that this is asking the board for a couple of things. We sunshined at the, well, started the sunshining period at our last meeting for the AFSCME contract. We have a tentative agreement. We're asking for the board to approve it tonight. So a couple of things we're asking for the board to do is shorten our regular sunshine period from 30 days to 28 days. And approve the terms of a collective bargaining agreement between the Park Fire Protection District and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Local 829. And authorize the fire chief to execute a memorandum of understanding for the term of January 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2020. That's our request tonight. I know the board has had an opportunity to talk about this in both open and closed sessions. So with that, if there's any questions we can have them given to Francine, or I'll leave it up to you, Director Jones, next.
Are there any questions before we go into move into motion?
I thought I had one here.
Okay.
Let's find out what the pages went on.
That's okay. Any other questions? Right. Moving on.
It's okay, go ahead, it was minor in the case.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve item number 4?
I'll move.
The motion is made by Virginia. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Rob. Any other-
Oh,
Call for the question.
okay, I was just gonna say, and I know this is a matter of preference and so forth. But I find it really hard to read ungrammatical stuff that we do for the sake of gender equity or whatever you wanna call it and so forth, and I don't know, I wish there were a better way, but using the plural to mean the singular just grates on me as someone who deals with learning in schools and children and so forth. I just wanted to make, we've gone back and forth on it. One, I don't know, 5 years ago, we went back and changed his and hers. And then we had that he, she kind of, slash for a while. I don't know what the right solution is, but in reading it, it just struck me wrong, and it almost feel, I know it's not a matter of ignorance, but every time it hits me, it feels like it's a matter of ignorance, so I just wanted to register my objection to doing it that way, but I'm voting for it, so.
So can you live with it for this vote?
Well, I have to live with it, but I'm just saying, I think it's an ugly way to deal with things.
You can always put it on the future agenda items to talk about, but for now, I think we got a motion been made, been second, so, Michelle, can we get a vote?
Director Bernstein?
I,
Director Bloom?
Aye.
Director Crawley?
Aye.
Director Solano?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye, motion's carried. We'll move on to item number 5.
You will take this one. This is just a standard thing that we normally bring back before the board related to our surplus policy. It's been approved by finance or recommended by the board. We're looking for approval from the board to surplus 2 vehicles. One is a very old crane that we're not going to replace. We're just going to rent it if we ever need one. And the other is actually belongs to the task force, so it's going to be replaced with FEMA. That's actually so those are those. Anyway, with that, any questions?
Any questions?
real quick question, did we ever use the crane for anything?
Yeah, I think it was required through a federal access program and they used it out at the rescue site. I think somebody even told me they took it at one point in time on a call. But it is old and tired and unsafe and it gets used so infrequently that it just makes more sense for us to rent rather than purchase and maintain and then again try and train people. And you look at the people that normally operate those, they're very highly qualified riggers and stuff. So it just makes sense to either contract it out or rent.
That crane struggles going down the freeway.
I was gonna ask,
Struggles.
is it built on wheels or is it, oh, it is?
It's completely. We used to store it up as yard and move it.
Okay,
I'll make a
so,
motion to authorize the surplus of the 2 district vehicles.
I'll second it.
motion been made by Virginia, second by,
Yeah.
Gary, and, so roll call.
Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Bloom?
Aye.
Director Crawley?
Aye.
Director Solano?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye. Carry 5-0. We'll move on to item number 6, which is, authorized work, directive.
I am going to take this briefly and assuming John Hitchcock is online. Okay. Just a quick reminder, when we started down the path of our big project here, we committed to coming back to the board a minimum of 5 times for approvals. We are at the point in time now where we're coming back for our third approval, Work Directive 3, and we're asking the board to approve us moving forward with the architect to develop construction documents and plans. And the commitment, if the board does that, the financial commitment is just a little over $2 million. So speed on where we are with this. And then if you have any questions, they're probably best directed to John. So.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So this report provides a brief update on the Fire Station 1 project, as well as requests authorization from the board to approve Work Directive 3 with PBK Architects. PBK has completed Work Directive 2, which was for the design development documents, and is ready to move forward with Work Directive 3, which is the creation of the construction documents. The construction documents are the plans and specifications which will be used for permitting and eventually will be used for bidding. The cost for this work directive is $2.1 million, and the development of these documents is anticipated to take 10 to 12 months to create. Concurrently, the city will be working with their consultant for the environmental review initial study. The city is anticipated to award a contract to a consultant in January, and those services are expected to be completed in September of 2026, possibly earlier. Once the initial study is completed, the district will seek Planning Commission and City Council approval. At that time, once we have both those approvals, we can then submit to the building department for permitting, which is anticipated to take 5 months to complete. During permitting, the district will have one final cost estimate prepared, and we will present that to the board for your consideration. If the estimate is in alignment with the project budget, then we will request at that time from the board to proceed with Work Directive 4, which is to perform the bidding. Upon receipt of the bids, staff will then return one more time to the board to request approval on Work Directive 5, which is for the construction admin services. And we also at that time will be requesting approval for construction services with the general contractor. Construction is anticipated to start in September of 2027 and be completed by February of 2031. And that concludes my report.
So, question?
Just a quick question, John. Does the 2.1 million include work by like the structural engineers and everything to do the structural parts? And do they do that in-house or do they use a third party?
So answer your first question, yes, that includes all the engineer costs associated with the construction documents. And they do have some in-house engineers, but in this case, they are all outside firms.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple of questions also. I've seen
Sure.
comments later, but just a couple of quick questions as well. On page 2 of the report, in the first paragraph of discussion, I'm sorry, page 2 of 3 of the report, 152 in our packet. It says, additionally, the project was presented to. I'm curious to know how many people showed up at that meeting.
So we did have Director Bloom show up. We had the Reverend from the cemetery show up, and then we had 4 neighbors show up, as well as 1 representative, I believe, from the Almanac.
Okay, and the second question was, down at the very last line of that page 2, I just don't understand what this means. Project savings can be contributed to reduce planning and construction duration. What does that mean?
Sure. So originally, when we started this project, we were assuming that we were going to have a temporary fire station partially located on our property and the other portion located on St. Pat's property. After reviewing other options, we decided we are going to look at having the temporary site at 114 Santa Margarita. By having the temporary site fully off of the Fire Station 1 site, it reduces the amount of phasing that we would have to do during construction. And because there's less phasing, the duration of the project is reduced, and therefore there's cost savings associated with it. So the original estimate,
Project savings can be contributed.
A better word would probably be attributed.
Oh, attributed?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Makes sense?
Yes.
I thought we were gonna save money and then give it to someone. Oh,
oh,
okay.
sorry about that.
That's why the cost dropped. One of the reasons the cost dropped.
I see, okay,
Gotcha.
thank you.
Any other questions? I have
This language getting in the way again.
a question. In the same page that Chuck, on page 152, page 2 of the report, one of the items that was addressed about the 114 Santa Monica. But there was another question that, in following that same sentence, it says addressing inconsistencies and requesting clarification. The remaining open items are not expected to impact the overall design of the site and building. I'm not sure if anybody can let me know what those remaining open items and the designs might be. And because it says it wouldn't impact the site and the buildings. That's the
Sure.
first question. And it,
Sure. So that is in relation to the planning department's comments. So we've been submitting back and forth to the planning department for several months now, and the fourth response we got back from the city is mostly in regards to square footage or heights. They want notations on the plans. There's no issues with the zoning requirements. It's just for clarity for the planning commission when they submit the drawing to them, that they want, everything perfect.
so the second area of question is in the next paragraph, which start with planning approval still required, requires planning commission and the city approval. The second sentence it starts with, it is anticipated that no significant findings, and I should underscore anticipated, no significant findings will be identified at the completion of the environmental analysis, and any finding will result in mitigation measures that are not expected to have a significant impact on the overall design of the project. And so the question is, that how do we know if we have not looked at the environmental analysis yet?
So the environmental consultant proposals have been submitted. I've reviewed the RFP that went out to them. The things that they're going to be studying are all boilerplate standard environmental issues. So they'll be looking at noise, traffic, historical resources, hazardous materials, and several other items. It will always come back in our case with some issues, such as you're going to have a generator on site that's going to create emissions and noise, and they're going to say you're going to have to mitigate that. We already know we have to mitigate that because we have to submit our plans to Bay Area Air Quality Management District, which manages emissions. So because we're replacing a fire station for a fire station, there's not a lot of change going on. And if you look at the things that they're going to be reviewing, we're pretty safe knowing that they're just going to come back with the standard responses. Could there possibly be some unknown thing, like they find a endangered species in our area that would cause a problem? Absolutely, it's always possible, but it's unlikely.
So is it my assumption is that the report is not in yet, and will it take under consideration the ground itself, because we are going down having underground parking? I assume that would be part of that analysis. And are we have the architects and the taken that under consideration in their costs in terms of where we are with understanding what's underneath this ground once we start tearing it out, tearing it open?
Absolutely. So early in the phase, the district hired a geotechnical engineer, which is separate from the architects team. They came out and they took samples throughout this project site and evaluated that information, created a report, which was provided to the structural engineer, which is being used to develop the underground parking design as well as the structures.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? If not, Chuck?
Well, these are comments. Are you taking comments at this point?
If it's a question as it relates to what's on here, if it's a comment, if you have a.
Well, it's a comment about what we're going to approve, so I didn't know.
Go for it.
I'm concerned that we don't have a plan for this whole project. I know that the board about 5 years ago tried to do some planning about what our needs for people were going to be 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years from now. And it got subverted, unfortunately, by staff members then or whatever, I don't know why. But for some reason, we never got a reading of that. I don't think we know what we're gonna need in terms of our people in 10 years, and that this is a major part of our admin facility and so forth. I know when we built Station 2 in East Palo Alto, we created a community room and it was, being used a lot and so forth. And within, I think, less than 3 years, suddenly there's a captain in there, there's somebody in that, it became an office, and now there's no more community room. It had been in the planning for 10 years, but it just been completed. And I've never seen a study that says how many people we're gonna need, what kind of overhead, where the areas of growth are gonna be. I'd like to see us, for example, consolidate. I don't think it makes sense to have our burn unit out by the Dunbarton Bridge and our tower unit by the, here on this property. It just seems to have training, it's kind of. And I think, I'm disappointed there are only 4 people showing up. I don't think we really advertised this very widely, because at one point we talked about it and there was.
Actually, there was 5 people out there.
Well, you're a board member, but in any case,
Like Gary. Go ahead, finish, so Chief can answer it. Please give it a shot.
yeah, I think there were people who were objecting at one point when we were talking about this, to having either black smoke pouring out of the building or white. And I'm not suggesting that it's toxic or whatever, but the minute people see that coming out of the building, there's gonna be calls, there are gonna be people who say, wait, why wasn't this dealt with in the environmental report, whatever. And I think it's gonna throw a monkey wrench. I would like to see us, are we gonna be able to get rid of our admin building? I think we should. Are we gonna be able to get rid of the house? I think we should. And yet, we have no idea, how many people are we planning, on? How many people will this hold?
Right now, we're talking about the construction aspect of it.
We're talking about doing construction documents. How many offices are we gonna construct, Robert?
I
Please,
think-
don't interrupt me.
I'm trying to save you.
No, don't save me
time,
anything.
because
Just let me speak.
you have seen the documents in terms of the estimation of how many staff members, who's gonna go where. I'm just saying, I'm not trying to interrupt you, but. if
But you are interrupting me.
Okay, I am, but I wanna make sure that we don't spend the next 15 minutes going over stuff that we have already talked about in our board.
We
meeting.
have never talked about this. We have never, every time we come here and say, well, we're gonna talk about it later, we're gonna talk about it later, we're gonna talk about it later. We've never talked about this.
If you have been here when the design has came and it talked about staffing for the new building, we've been talking about staffing for almost, at least since I've been on the board, that's been almost 5 years now.
Can you give me a copy of it, please?
You already have a copy. You was here at the meeting, so Chief. Chief-
I never interrupt you. I'm interrupting you now
Oh, Chief.
because you interrupted me. Let me finish my comments.
Well, how long are you gonna take? You got another 2 minutes to finish your comment, because you've been at it for almost 5 minutes now.
When you wanna give a speech, you'll do it as long as you please.
If you.
This is something that's important.
If you respect this position, then you respect my wishes of.
I don't
wrapping up.
respect you interrupting me. I don't respect that.
You
It's
got-
rude.
You got another 3 minutes to finish what you need to say. Go for it. Time is wasted.
Yeah, excuse me, because the dictator has just spoken about how we proceed
You're
in discussing
absolutely
these
right.
items.
You're absolutely right. As long as I'm the chair, it'll be over with it soon, but as long as I'm the chair, I'm giving you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Finish
over
it.
with because you're gonna ram it through. So you know what? We're gonna come back at some point.
Go
You probably
for it.
won't be on the board at that point.
Maybe
But we're
not.
it'll.
No, you may not be either yourself, so don't even think about where I'm on it or not. Your term is up as well, so don't go there.
My turn
So
is,
if you're gonna finish or not,
I am trying to finish. You
well,
keep interrupting
finish,
me.
finish.
Stop interrupting.
Go ahead, go for the last one.
Stop interrupting
Like
me.
a spoiled little kid, gotta have the last one. Go for it, Chuck. You got 3 minutes. I'm counting right now at 7:40.
Spoiled little
At
kid.
7:43, we terminating your conversation. So you got 3 minutes.
Shame on you, Robert.
No shame on you.
Anyway, I think we need a plan where we figure out how many people this is gonna accommodate, how many cars we're gonna have to accommodate. and things like that. We're also talking about putting up a huge, it's a tower, but it's not like a tower like we have here. It's a huge, massive building that we're talking about putting up at a very high cost. And I don't think that's necessary. In any case, I think to have training done in two different places doesn't make sense. At least we ought to be discussing. That's never been discussed. So I'm gonna vote against this tonight because I think starting to do construction documents when we don't even know what it is we want to build. I don't know what we want to build, and I don't think we want to build what's being planned right now or what's stated here. So I'm explaining why I'm gonna vote against this right now. I'm done.
Question.
Okay. Rob?
Yeah, John. Since it's come up with the consolidation of full training facility, other than that site, is there any other sites within the district that can accommodate the tower, the classrooms, all the things that we need relative the like we have out at the Dumbarton Bridge? Is there within the properties or the assets that we have, is there a place we can put everything and consolidate it into one location?
Fire Station 1 offers the largest site that we have. So being able to fit most of our training needs at Fire Station 1 makes the most sense from the assets that we currently have. With the potential loss of the PG&E training facility, Fire Station 1 would be the only location at that point. If you have specific questions though about training, I would defer to Chief Ellis.
Let me, and this might give Director Bernstein some comfort in this. There was, since you weren't on, people that were on the facilities committee ended up being exposed to what went into this. And I appreciate what you're saying because I would be concerned too if I believed there hadn't been a really thorough process. We started in the very beginning with what we'll call a charrette. It's the planning process that you go through with an architect. We brought in subject matter expert groups for all of the things you were talking about. You know, our training facility, trying to predict into the future what size we were going to need. You look at the number of bedrooms and engine bays that we've designed into the fire station. We don't need that right now. We're trying to have a vision for what do we need in 20 years from now, or even longer. And so we've designed extra things in there. Same thing in our administrative offices. Quite a few extra offices and space that we can expand into. Again, we got together with each and every bureau to talk about what our anticipated needs are. Same thing with the space underneath. We talked with every program manager about their storage needs, and everybody wants to store more than we could ever store, but we actually increased our space in the underground parking because it was the cheapest option for additional storage needs. Related to the two different places where we can train, we know that our time is site, and that is at some point in time, PG&E is going to take it back from us, and we won't be able to burn out there anymore, and we won't be able to burn anywhere in San Mateo County like we can there. For it's a unicorn out there, right? Because we can burn, put big back and big dirty black smoke, and nobody complains. What we are planning on doing here, and we even talked about it at community meeting, was we're going to have live fire here, but just with propane props, which is clean burning natural gas, no actual pollutant smoke. We use theatrical smoke, which is non-toxic and dissipates pretty quickly. But we always put signs out anytime we have fire service training, so we typically don't get false calls or things like that. But yeah, like I said, everything you're concerned about has been addressed, probably not brought up to the full board in all of its with all of the detail, but at least 3 board members have put eyes on the planning process. So I know Director Bloom has some comments.
Just add a couple of comments too. So as it relates to the inhabitable building, plan all along through multiple facilities committees, it's Rob and myself right now, it was myself and Robert the time before. That building would be sold at the conclusion of construction and occupation of this building. The house next door, the yellow house, not sure what else it's called. The plan is that's actually gonna be the location of the temporary fire station. So that building will actually get demolished and there'll be trailers there. And then that property would also be liquidated at the conclusion of the project. The district, John and Chief did look at alternatives, including the St. Cat's property for the temporary fire housing. From a cost basis, it was materially less money to use property we own than to try to meet the pre-requirements of the seminary. So the decision was a financial decision to move it over there. And then just as it relates to training, I would just tell you, having been participating in training at both locations, the type of training that occurs out at the PPD site is materially different than what occurs here outside, with the exception of the burn props, which will, as Chief said, would be theatrical smoke and propane here. Out there it's real burn, but the main part of that site out there is actually has to do with the debris pile and other kinds of props like that are out there that are just not going to be duplicated over here at this training site. So I think when we lose the PPD site, there's a certain kind of training we're gonna lose, but I think from my lens, having participated in training for years, it's materially different kinds of training. I think our next closest site for the kind of training we do out of the training site will probably be one of the San Francisco training locations for that kind of type of structure. But for day-to-day fire training, the training center that's envisioned here will meet requirements.
He said no.
And again, Director Bernstein, my hope is that they'll have the trust and comfort to give it a yes, but happy to share with you any and all of the documents we prepared. Because it's all there, and like I said, the planning that's gone into it, and also trying to have that really long-term vision so that as soon as we're done, we're not bursting at the seams. So we're gonna have excess space and the ability to expand even up if we need to, but thank you.
I wanted to address just one last point, if I may. The community meeting, it was very well advertised to the local community. The city has a requirement of notification to the residents in the area. My personal opinion on it is that based on the couple residents that were here, is that John and the team did a really nice job of talking to many of the neighbors in advance of the meeting. And there's been ongoing conversation. So I don't think there was a pent up need to say, well, we have to come and scream our opinions out about this facility. The two areas that were, I think, kind of polarizing, one of which the architect is looking at, was the reflective nature of the siding of the building. And the other one that was brought up was having to do with the fence and the trees. And I do think the neighbors recognize that the site that we currently have is not the most beautiful site in the city of Menlo Park either. And so that this being a modern new structure, newly landscaped, improvement in the neighborhood. But I think most of the reason we didn't get a lot of participation is because of the socializing that was done in advance of the meeting.
Rob?
Yeah, we also, and John's aware of this too, is we talked about the consolidation of the actual training facilities, like pretty much every fire agency has one, has a tower, has somewhere to train, has classrooms and stuff. And maybe Chief, you can help me, that it came to a point where we agreed to have our own because of the accessibility, keeping fire trucks in service, the uniqueness of maybe our training staff and our training facility and how to have it available. So we also talked about that too, about like using the facility out in Half Moon Bay. So we have to get a fire truck, have to go all the way over to Half Moon Bay and train them all the way back and take maybe one or two engines out of service and with the backfill. So we did explore the consolidation of the training facilities too with that. And as John said, that it looks like Station One is, if we're gonna do anything inclusive training, or we should use, well, Station One is the best choice. So I think that pretty much sums it up for myself.
Robert, do we have a motion yet for this?
That's coming up as soon as Rob finishes.
Go ahead and move that we authorize work directive 3 with PBK Architects for construction document services, the amount of $2,280,000.
I'll second that.
The motion been made as second by Virginia. Question?
Director Bernstein?
I'm going to vote no, and I'd like the minutes to reflect that, the things I've heard actually sound better than I feared, but I would like to see the documents that describe us selling buildings and things like that.
Director Bloom?
Aye.
Director Crowell?
Aye.
Director Solano?
I,
Director Jones?
Aye. Motion carried. We'll move on to item number 8.
7.
7, I'm sorry.
This is discussing and accepting the internal controls assessment report. This went before Finance Committee in November, and we didn't have it at our November board meeting because the audit. And so with that, I'm gonna turn it over to.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm just really gonna give a little background on how we came up with this project, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Sadie Greenwald from IBALY, which is our consultant. This project actually came up because of the grand jury report that was released last June of 2024. And the board actually, in the district, with approval from the board, that we actually responded, to those findings that they have. And we kind of like disagreed that the findings are really specific to us. So the findings are more to actually initiate this project, to formally identify those organizational risks and evaluate our existing internal controls. So with the support from the board during the last budget session, we actually allocated a certain amount of money to actually initiate this project. So we hired IBALY. This is just to let you know, this is not an audit. This is an assessment. So just to, there's no opinion or whatsoever. This is more consulting work that they did for us. So we collaborated. We had a comprehensive effort to document all the organizational risks and assess the adequacy of our internal control framework. So overall, I think the assessment. This is what I wanted to emphasize. The assessment in itself, concluded that the district has established and well-structured system of internal controls. So despite our size, we are actually very good with our internal control system, implementing them and making sure it's effective to address those risks that we are concerned about. So our current processes, and then our current safeguards are largely adequate in addressing those identified risks and in maintaining the district's financial and operating integrity. So the opportunity, or the recommendations that we would see on the report, it's mostly just opportunities for improvement. And as a district, as well, we are always open to improvements. Just making sure we further implement this recommendations to minimize those potential risks and to strengthen our commitment with financial transparency and accountability. So with that being said, I'm gonna turn it over to Sadie. So she has a short slide deck for you, just a summary of what they did and then the results of the project.
All right, good evening, members of the board. My name's Sadie Greenwald, and I'm with IBALY. I'm going to go ahead and share my presentation. Okay. All right, can everyone see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. And I'll go ahead and jump in. Good evening, members of the board. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Sadie Greenwald, and I am a manager with IBALY. Our partner, Bradford Rocketbrand, is with me today as well. I am pleased to present the findings from the internal controls assessment for the Menlo Park Fire Protection District. So, before we dive into the assessment, let me briefly introduce our service line. We call ourselves One Connected Firm, and we do actually operate as that. Our advisory team does differ from the tax and audit team that you're likely familiar with. And if there's an area of need, the advisory team has the resources to fill that need. Eide Bailly's Government Advisory Services Department brings together 44 staff members with both local and national expertise. Our core services include finance operations, staff augmentation, long-term financial planning, GASB implementations, organizational assessments, and also ERP consulting. All right, and then our project team. Our project team for this assessment includes Bradford Rockabrand, our national partner in charge with 20 years of experience within California government, Scott Catlett, a director with 25 years of experience, myself, Sadie Greenwald, a manager with 6 years of experience, and Amber Haston, a manager with 12 years of experience. Together, we bring a wealth of knowledge and a deep understanding of the unique challenges that are faced by public sector organizations. All right, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty of it. So our main goal was to help the district identify organizational risks that could impact accounting and financial management. We assessed the existing internal controls to see if they adequately address those risks. We surveyed the Administrative Services Department and other key staff, reviewed relevant documents, and interviewed stakeholders, including the finance manager, to get a comprehensive view of the organization. Finally, we prepared a written report summarizing our observations and our recommendations. All right, our methodology on it. So how did we approach this assessment? We started with initial discussions to understand the district's environment. We then sent out a questionnaire that was personalized to the district. Administrative services staff completed the questionnaires, which gave us valuable insights to lead our analysis. We reviewed documents and policies to see what controls are currently in place and review and identify any gaps. We conducted interviews with key personnel to help us clarify and deepen our understanding of the identified areas. All of this helped us to inform the development of our observations and our recommendations and lead to the final report that you've seen. So, some key takeaways. This is the good news. The district demonstrates a strong commitment to public safety and operational excellence. There's clear alignment with best practices, and a comprehensive system of internal controls is in place. Most areas that we reviewed showed low or very low risk, which is a testament to the district's proactive approach and the expertise and transparency of its staff. We worked closely with the finance manager, whose prompt responses and provided documents proved key in the success of the engagement. All right, and then our key observations. Of course, every organization does have areas for improvement, and these are what we identified. Within the area of ethics, fraud, waste, and abuse, we found that the district does not currently have specific policies and procedures for fraud prevention, nor a mechanism for anonymous reporting of fraud or abuse. Within accounting and financial reporting, there's no formal review or sign-off process for accounting close activities. In regard to the external environment, we found that financial operations are not included within the district's emergency action plan. Within the area of procurement and contracting, we found there are no controls to prevent indefinite contracts in procurement. And then our key recommendations to follow up on those observations. So based on these observations, we recommend that the district implement the following items. Develop and implement a fraud prevention policy and procedures along with an anonymous reporting mechanism. Establish formal reviews and sign-offs for accounting close activities. Create written procedures for the continuity of essential finance operations and include those in the emergency action plan. And then to add contract term limits to all contracts and review those periodically. We have discussed and reviewed these recommendations with staff, and within the full report have detail on the expected amount of time required to implement each recommendation. In closing, I want to thank you for your attention and engagement. The Menlo Park Fire Protection District's commitment to continuous improvement is clear, and we're honored to support your efforts. As always, Eide Bailly is always here as a resource for your ongoing needs. And that's kind of what we had.
Is that interpretation?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Is there
Short and sweet.
Yep, so we're actually open if you have questions or clarifications or comments.
Are there any from the board, any questions, comments? May have Chuck, Mr. Bernstein?
Gary and I were in a meeting an hour ago or so, and we were talking about the nature of the controls, and I read this very differently, I think, than he does. He was saying this was just financial controls. It seemed to me that it was actually broader than that when it's talking about culture and things like that. Can you enlighten us? Are we really talking about financial controls, or is this controls at even the management levels of the organization?
Yeah, so we looked at the full administrative services operations of the district. So that's why there's the inclusion of culture and a few of the other items from the report that you recommended.
Okay, let me ask a more specific question then. First of all, I've been reading very carefully, and I don't know if you follow it all, that the Galatolo trial that's going on with the fellow who is the executive director or whatever of the community college board in the county. And in a way, that's just kind of an educational organization. One of the things about the fire district is it's a paramilitary organization in a way. It's very much organized in a hierarchical manner. And actually, I want to preface my question with the idea that I'm not concerned about anything that is happening today. That's not an issue. But I think as recently as 5 years ago, it was an issue for me. And it's a situation where people would know about abuses that were going on. For example, we have a regulation in terms of how we will procure something. But if somebody, a senior manager of the organization, decided that something would get purchased outside of that, nobody within the organization would have the courage to speak up or reveal it or whatever. And it's in that where I think that there are problems when it's the implementation of the procedures and not necessarily the lack of the procedures that is the problem that I'm referring to. How do we deal with that?
I can speak
This
to
question
that a little bit.
to the consultants?
Yeah, you bring up a good point, sir, in regard to internal controls, because although the finances and the money aspect of an internal control mechanism is attached to finance in most people's minds, a lot of it comes down to culture and tone from the top and management and what those managers and senior managers, to your point, are doing in terms of culture, and what are those processes in place so that you're segregating those responsibilities in a prudent and fiscally responsible way, not just in terms of separating the physical checks and bank reconciliations and the components of the COSO framework that we rely on for strong internal controls, but that there is a culture in place at the managerial level and at the staff level, that there's a common purpose for the organization that adheres to strong internal controls for those purposes that end up having good outcomes, financial outcomes, administrative outcomes, operational outcomes. Does that answer your question a little bit more sufficiently?
Yeah, but the Galatolo situation, for example, some of the money that was fraudulently siphoned off ended up going to use in the election of another board member. And you've got this corruption that just permeates the organization. And those are the things that trouble me. Another example, we had a senior financial leader here who for 10 years did not invest the money of our organization. And I don't know how many millions we lost, but I would guess it was in excess of $10 million. And yet, what we're talking about is somebody who was incompetent and kept, whenever asked by board members about what was happening, it was like, well, you don't understand public finance and so forth. And I just wonder how do you break through that? How do you manage in that kind of environment? And is there anything that can be done with controls to improve that?
It's a great
Brad,
question.
sorry, I can take a stab on it a little bit, and then you can probably chime on in as well, Brad. So essentially, I think I hear what you're saying, Director Bernstein. So what the district's trying to do, of course, with any internal controls, it's not 100% foolproof. So there's always going to be limitations with internal controls. Like what you mentioned, there could be this culture, there could be this pollution, or management override, right? It's one of the examples of, the limitations of internal controls. So what, as a team, as finance, and what we're trying to do is really to address those risks, to minimize those. So we are actually proactively looking for ways to actually prevent, those risks from happening. Although, again, it's not 100% foolproof. What we're doing is, of course, there's this certain level of reviews. Like one of your examples, if these funds are, being, siphoned to, election or whatsoever. Like with our current process, we have certain controls on how to prevent that. Someone who's if someone is initiating it, someone approving it, and someone's doing the transfer. So essentially, what we're trying to do is, build up on those internal controls, different layers. I think one of the big things on that is in the separation of duties. So I think, overall, I think we can't really address all of the risks 100% for it to prevent from happening again. But what we're doing right now as a team is we're being proactive. We're that's why we also did this project is for us to learn and improve things that we didn't think of. We're always open to that, and I think with the way we're dealing with the risks that we have right now, I think as far as I can say, I think it's pretty sufficient and adequate. Yeah, so that's those are just my thoughts. Brad can chime in if you have any more thoughts on that. So.
I think you responded to that very thoroughly. Thank you. And just to continue to respond to the school district fraud there. Unfortunately, in the world, there are bad eggs and there are bad actors, and when people are taking kickbacks on the backside and they're, taking gifts from contractors for lucrative contracts, there's only a limited number of controls that can be put in place to mitigate all things. And in our field, when we issue audit reports, we say we're issuing a reasonable amount of assurance because we can't issue absolute assurance that something isn't happening. Two people could collude to circumvent a control that's put in place. People can find all kinds of tricky ways to get around the systems that are in place. We've seen that. It's an unfortunate reality. But again, it goes back to the culture. It goes back to the tone at the top. It goes back to mitigating those controls to the extent possible and just being mindful of the possibilities and spot checking things and ensuring that you're doing the best that you can with the resources that are available to you at that time.
Are there any other questions? If not, I have a question to ask. If you may, directing your attention to page 165 and page 8 of the report. My question, it talks about various risk level. It goes from very low to I think medium risk. So my question is that on these pages, are you in the process of considering ways in which to help mitigate or bring those the high medium risk down to a very low risk? And have you, with that said, looked at a time frame to begin to try to implement some type of resolutions to that?
Yes, we actually discussed that, Francine and I actually talked about that and prioritizing pretty much, the recommendations, observations that, I Bailey, presented in this report. So, what our plan is, of course, we're gonna prioritize, depending on, the risk as well as, the amount of time that's needed to actually implement those, recommendations. Like, for example, I think most of the observations or recommendations are low risk or very low risk. And the amount of time needed really to implement, those additional controls are not really extensive. So because it's mostly policy based, if you actually notice, most of the observations are policy based. So on our, regular meetings and such, we always, revisit, some of the policies that we have, like rooms for improvement. So that's an ongoing one. So for anything that's policy related, it's kind of like an ongoing and annual thing for us anyway. So we always review it. But for things that are a bit on the harder side to implement, let's say, for example, one of the recommendations is to have desk procedures for all of the accounting systems. That would take a lot of time, not just from me, but from all my team members, because on top of our current responsibilities, have to document like each of the step that we're doing, screenshots, or the processes, and make it look that make it in a way wherein if someone else like comes in, like anyone can actually take the job like right away with all those procedures. So in terms of like the implementation itself, we are prioritizing. We are in talks of trying to see when can we actually start doing it, and if we ever did, definitely we'll let the board know that for although in reality or in essence, again, this is an audit. We don't necessarily have to follow all of the recommendations, or we don't even need to actually address those depending on what the level of risk is. But our plan is, since we agree on most of them, we are gonna implement it, and then if we we'll definitely let the board know what the status on that.
So one of the things, if I may, I don't know, Francine, you have something you want to say on this, but I think for me, if I'm still around as a board member, I think for me, it would be one of those things that, two things. One, if you take the high risk to the low risk kind of stepping stone, and then also a time frame in terms of when you think you'll be able to start working on it to completion, and to be able to kind of figure out when you want to report back or should report back to the board based upon error once you can have completed it or put together a time frame to that. And also take a lot of work, but I think it'll probably settle some minds for future, so that we won't have to come back and revisit this again at some point in time.
Yeah, like Elaine said, we spoke about this and kind of looking at which ones we can knock off. We do because some of them are very easy,
Right.
like the fraud reporting, that's kind of something that's super simple. The one about the desk or the desk kind of booklets is a lot more kind of labor intensive, and what we had discussed with that is because we're looking into an ERP, that possibly waiting to do that until after implementation because the processes will change. So we will definitely have a plan and kind of identify the higher risk. We don't. And as Elaine mentioned, a lot of them are policies. Maybe something that we actually kind of do, but we don't have a written policy documenting it, like the year-end procedures. That's something that the finance team, they go through and they make checks, but we don't have a formal checklist. So some of those is just kind of memorializing things that we're already doing. But we will definitely, chip off at those and then come up with a plan and then report back to the finance committee.
Yeah, you hit the point I was gonna make, which is, I think this is something finance committee in coming years should just continue to oversee as a normal course. I think the team did a really nice job of responding to kind of a unexpected call out in the grand jury report that I personally was kind of like pretty dismissive of. But I applaud the staff and Bailey in actually doing a thorough analysis and actually looking at our internal controls and identifying, okay, where are we actually at and where are the areas for improvement? I do think there's some low hanging fruit. broad, kind of 800 number email account or whatever for anonymous reporting. That is proven in many effective way to give a voice to anybody anywhere. As long as you have a decent process of what you're going to do with that when it comes in. But I think on an ongoing basis versus trying to establish a schedule right now, I think this is just something the finance committee should, on an ongoing basis, kind of oversee with staff.
I think for me, if I may finish this line of thought, is that the timeframe is not necessarily one of a, looking over the shoulder. It's kind of giving this broad perspective, a broad idea of, whether it's next year or 2 years from now, here's how we're gonna work through this particular issue. It's not something you have to report back every month, every quarter, but here.
Yeah, I think I would be on the same page as you, as I'd be pounding the table for a schedule on these. If everything came back or a number of them were high risk. This is my second time hearing the presentation too, so I have an advantage of having digested it and hearing it again. And I see where our level of risk are, and then you actually look under the covers and you take into account Brad's comments about, culture is the solution to much of this. Is, do you have a culture of transparency and doing things right? Or do you have a culture of how clever can we be? And our culture is good, and none of these are considered really high risk. I kind of backed off on I'm not sure of this real formal schedule. I don't think it should be ignored. I don't think it should go on for 10 years, but I also don't think, unless we had some really high risk ones, as a board, we should be really pushing too hard on deadlines and deliverables.
Whereas,
That's, everybody can differ on that. That's my
right,
personal.
yeah, I get that, and I'm in the same corner. I think there's only three levels, they had the medium, they had the low risk, and then they had there are three areas that kind of stood out in that regard, so.
Yeah, and we'll come up with a plan.
Yeah.
We don't want it to go away, and Colleen and I meet
That's the
weekly
thing.
to talk about these things, and whether or not it's like, the hard fast schedule is like, we'll come up with a realistic plan as to, which ones we can mark off, addressing, the higher risk, that don't, take a lot of the time. Sure.
I think it'd be good to plan and share with the board.
Yes.
Yeah,
Finance committee and then the board.
that's pretty much what I'm trying to do. Chuck?
I have two quick questions. In our environment, what does unclaimed funds mean? Pardon me?
Checks that aren't cashed.
Ah, I see, okay. I see, and what we do with those and so forth.
Yeah.
Got it, okay. And the second question, on number 6, information technology, and I'm not being critical here, this happens, but it says, this is the information technology and the risks associated with information technology. I mean, it appears that we were seriously hacked. Our system had to be somehow redone or reinstalled or something. I know my email was down for a while because of it. And yet it says it's very low risk, but it doesn't seem to me that it is very low risk because it happened already. What does that mean that it's very low risk? Or maybe if they've improved it, I'm not sure what it means, that's what I'm really asking.
So
I can address it as a technologist. I can tell you the amount of controls and the amount of systems we had in place was completely adequate. But it's impossible to protect against everything that's out there. So to me, it would be extremely high risk if we were being sloppy and we were exposed because we didn't take the efforts to avoid it. But I would tell you, for the one that got through, there's probably been hundreds, if not thousands, of attempts to get into our systems, which is common across public agencies and private corporations both. It's ongoing. It's a continual threat environment. But I don't think we're sloppy. Identified it very quickly, which is a testament to good controls as well.
Yeah, so for that, I can also address that. So, Sadie or Brad, correct me if I'm wrong. So when they actually assess, the risk, they actually check, what's the likelihood and then the magnitude. of, that from that risk, for it to happen, pretty much. And then they actually sent us, a bunch of like questionnaires, questions that, would address, those risks. So if we have like controls on each of the risks, that they identify, then pretty much, if it's adequate, if it's, effective, or again, if it addresses, those risks, then they probably identify that it's a low risk, for us. Because again, as Director Bloom mentioned, like it's not like we don't have any like controls that with IT that relates to like financial accountability or whatnot, right? We do have like a lot of controls, a lot of layers. I can attest to that, and then Francine can probably chime in on this as well. We do have like a lot of layers with our IT function, like cybersecurity. Like we have a lot of backups. We have a lot of those things, and maybe that's the reason why they actually assess it as a low risk, because we have those. It's not lacking based on the documents that they receive from us. That's why they assess it as very low risk.
Okay, if there's no other question, I can have a motion.
I'll move
What are we moving?
to accept the internal controls assessment.
I'll second.
Motion been made by Virginia, second by Gary. Michelle?
Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Bloom?
Aye.
Director Crowell?
Aye.
Director Solano?
Aye.
Director Johnson?
Aye. Moving on to item number 8.
Yes, number 8, also was before the Finance Committee earlier this month. That was reviewed, recommended to be moved forward. I'm going to turn it over to Elaine to lead you through this conversation.
A lot of pages
So,
there.
good evening again, directors. Good evening, everyone. So this report is, we're actually, this is more for your information only, because we're looking back on, the performance of the plan, because the plan or the CalPERS valuation report is after 2024. So, as you know, the valuation reports, this actually presents the financial position of the plan. It shows, the market value for assets, or unclaimed liability, our contribution rates, and anything really that relates to, any actuarial liabilities that we have for all of our plans. So what I want to point out for this year, I think this is the second year that, we are actually presenting this to the board. I think last year was the first one, when we implemented our new pension funding policy. One of the things that we put there is, we would present to the board, evaluation reports. So last year, you received like 4 reports. That's one for safety classic, safety PEPRA, miscellaneous classic, and then miscellaneous PEPRA. But for this year, for the valuation year starting June 30 of 2024, we only have 2. So they actually consolidated the plans for the safety and then the plans for miscellaneous. So there are no more distinctions between PEPRA and classic members when it comes to the valuation reports. And the reason being is, I think CalPERS wanted to consolidate the information because at the end of the day, whether you're a PEPRA member or a classic member, if you retire, you can have access to that one, to the safety one. So it creates separating it creates some sort of an artificial distinction between the two, but in reality, any retired member can actually access those funds for their retirement. And they wanted to simplify the presentation, so we're only receiving 2. And again, just so you know, this is not for every agency. This is only for agencies who are in the plans. Pooled plans, meaning there's 100, 250 or less than 150 members per plan. So not all agencies, are actually in the pooled plans. Some of them are in a separate plan. But for any agency that's in a pooled plan, they are actually consolidating, those things. But even if it's they call this, it's combined now, so the market value of assets are combined, unfunded liabilities are combined, the total liability is combined. But one thing that they kept separate is the normal cost contribution, because that's a percentage of payroll. So for example, for safety, their contribution, for employer, they're contributing 29% percent. So they still separate that because that's, you know, each member has its own, you know, classification, so it doesn't really make sense for them to have a blended rate on, you know, the normal cost. So that one is the one that they kept separate. Then I would like to point out just a few things I think that's meaningful, I would say, you know, for the board. If you turn on page 5, I think that's page 189 of the report. So this is, you know, the combined, you know, funded ratio of, you know, the district. So we are actually for this valuation report, we are at 84.1%, which is about like roughly like 1%, you know, above like last year's, you know, valuation report. And I would just like to say that, you know, overall, like in average, the CalPERS, you know, funded, you know, ratio is about 75%. So we are actually well over the average, you know, for every agency like CalPERS. And then investment highlights, I think that's on the same page. So as of June 30th, 2024, I think on the last paragraph, and then the last table as well, that shows that, you know, we have a 9.3% preliminary investment return, which is 2.5% over the discount rate of 6.8%.
Wow.
So that's actually good news. CalPERS, the investment, it went really well during the 2024 year. And we are actually expecting it to actually even be better because as of June 30th, 2025, I think that's on the next page. The next page on the last paragraph. So the preliminary results for as of June 30th, 2025, it's 11.6%,
Wow.
which is 4.8% higher than the discount rate of 6.8%. So for the past 2 years, the investments have been performing really well, and that actually affected, you know, our funded status. It increased, you know, by a little over, a little less than like 1%. And if this continues, you know, we of course, you know, expect, you know, for our plans to get better and better, especially in combination of our strategy of implementing the 10 years of fresh starts with in managing our unfunded liabilities. And then lastly, I think another thing that the board would probably be should be aware of is I think on the last page of the report, which is page 192.
Page 7.
Yeah, page 7,
Yeah.
page 192 of packet. So CalPERS actually completed an ALM study. So that ALM study is, you know, a comprehensive tool where we would discuss, you know, all the investment, you know, strategy, the demographics, and the actuarial assumptions, and they do it every 4 years with a mid-review every 2 years. So this, you know, they would, you know, make some assumptions or, you know, adopt some changes when it comes to the actuarial, you know, reports. So 2 things I would like to say here is in the November board meeting for CalPERS, they actually approved to keep the discount rate at 6.8%. So they did not change the discount rate. They kept it at 6.8%. And I think the other big thing that they changed is the investment strategy. So before the investment strategy is strategic asset allocation. But now they actually move towards, you know, a more risk-based approach. So they have a little bit more control on, you know, some of the things or some of the investments where they have like some sort of leeway to capture, you know, some opportunities within the market. And then lastly, I think on letter B of the report, the pooling regulation changes. It's on the same page. So as I mentioned earlier, currently we are under the pool plans. So all of our risks, all of our contributions, market value of assets are shared with other agencies within that pool. But CalPERS is actually now proposing to allow moving in and out of, you know, the pool plans. So if there would, I mean, right now we cannot because of the requirements that they have right now, it's, you know, 150 member threshold. But at some point, future, if let's say our safety, you know, class or safety, like, you know, our safety pool becomes like, more than 150, we now have the option to have a separate plan, not a pool plan. So a separate plan is, we have more controls on our contributions, our fundings, because right now with the pool plans, it's shared. So the only thing that we can actually control of is to manage our unfunded liability like separately. So I think that's really what the report is all about. I really pointed out just the things that I think the board should be aware of. So in the upcoming years or in the next evaluation like reports, some of this would be affect. I mean, our contributions rates will be affected. And just so you know, again, for this valuation report, June 30, 2024, there's no financial impact as of now. So the financial impact will actually start next year. So there's a 2-year lag between the report and then the changes in the contribution rates. So the contribution rates for June 30, 2024 valuation report will be effective July 1 of 2026.
So
That being said,
Actually, really.
can I ask a very simple question from my perspective, or complex from my perspective? On that last bottom in B, when it talked about the plan, the pool plan that exceed 150 members, and it once you reach that threshold, it becomes voluntary or involuntary?
yes, so they have like certain rules. I think I'm not quite sure yet, what the exact like rules are, but right now I think their CalPERS will be allowing like voluntary and involuntary moving in and out of the plans. Of course, there would be some requirements because let's say for 1 year you move into a non-pooled plan. If you go below like 150, it's not like you're voluntary or involuntary, like moving back and forth, because that's gonna be a nightmare. So I think they would have some sort of like requirement. So right now, I think it's not yet clear to me what those are. I think they're probably plan to actually for this one to be effective like July 2026.
And there has to be advantage or disadvantage for going in now. What
There
can you
is.
tell me what that?
There is, because right now if we're in a pooled plan, as I mentioned earlier, our resources, our liabilities are shared with other agencies. So we don't have a separate like. If you think about it, let's say on an investment, perspective, right? Our CAMP or our LAIF fund right now, that's a pooled plan. So it's not like an actual like security. Our separately managed account, that's a non-pooled plan. So it's managed all separately. So with the pooled plan, everything is shared, like the risks are shared, the rewards are kind of like shared as well, the resources are shared. So we don't have much control over it. But the advantage of that is since it's really for smaller agencies, it's actually geared towards smaller agencies. The way they actually do it is, they wanted it to be pooled to control, the volatility in the contribution rates. Because let's say, for example, there's an agency, there's only like, 10 members. Like, on a given year, if it's on a separate plan, like it can be like 10% 1 year, and then the next year it's like 70%. Then the next year it's gonna be like, 30%. So it's gonna be very volatile with the changes because of how small it is. So that's why, for smaller like agencies like us, they decided to actually have it in a pool to actually control that volatility. When if it's a separately managed plan, so if it's a non-pooled plan, the advantages of course is you have more control of it, right? You have more say, like on the fundings, how you manage your assets, how you manage your liabilities. But at the same time, you have no control on how the volatility, because it really depends on. It's more like discretionary in a way. Like it depends, on how you manage it. So there's really like pros and cons on pooled and versus non-pooled plans. But as of now, we are going to be retained under the pooled plan, unless unless chief hires like 50 firefighters next time. Then we will probably have an option to move out of the pooled plans. But right now it's not an area of concern. But if we do get to that point, of course, we will definitely have a discussion with our internal team and then with the board, what are the advantages and the disadvantages of actually moving out of that. But as of now, we don't see it in the foreseeable future to be like, over 150, for, our plans, but this is again just, for, the board's information, just so everyone is aware. So in
Thank you.
case, someone like, ask you about it, maybe, can tell them, yeah, it's CalPERS.
Good to know.
Right, that's
Good to
right.
know.
And I'm just gonna say with the full plans, I mean, if it's not, the option of, right now is, like Planning said, it's more controlled, but the non-full plans, there could be, basically experiences or risks we have no control over. Maybe an agency has a lot of IDR, industrial disability, and that can cause our rates to go up because we're having to share in that cost. So, I mean, I would like it if, and if they wouldn't have changed it, we could have met the requirement because the current requirement is 100 or more per plan, which is what we met. But the legislation that went through, it was approved at the September meeting, was to make that number higher to 150, and I thought, darn it.
Any other questions, Chuck? Thank you.
I'll tell you, I tried to read, this is a very difficult document to understand. I mean, the tables are very complex and the difference among tables is, I mean, I put side by side trying to figure out what the differences between them were, but what really bothers me about this is that we have record returns, I mean, everything, all is good news. And then, oh, by the way, you're gonna pay more this year than you paid last year. And I don't understand why that is. Can you just in a nutshell, tell me why we have to pay more given these fantastic returns?
Yeah, so a fantastic year for investment doesn't necessarily mean that, we're gonna have to pay less for our unfunded accrued liability. Because the way I think the better way to actually think about it is, the total liability, not just within a given year. Because mostly, I think, that's why I think, in some of the tables here that you see, it's up and down for the unfunded liabilities. I think it's largely because of, their amortization policy. Because their amortization policy, like for the unfunded liability, it's not straight line. So if it's, let's say, they amortize it over 10 years, just for example, right? Let's say we have an unfunded liability of $1 million. They are not amortizing it straight line for 10 years, which is $100,000 a year. So what their policy, at least, for the investment gains and losses or for the unfunded, liability base, it's a ramp up method. So it could be like 20%, first 20% on the first year, and then it could go up like, 40% the next year, 60%, 80%, 100% until everything is actually amortized. So it's not really like, a fixed amount every year. So the way I would read it is, basically it should be like the overall unfunded liability, which actually like went down because, of, the investment gains, the record returns, for the plans. Yes, that makes sense, Director Messi.
Yeah, let me ask a parallel question to that. The funded ratio, the highest we had was right at the height of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Why would that have been?
I think that's because of the high. I mean, that's where the returns were like so high with the stock market as well. I think that's the year when it actually blew up. So and it's in proportion of course, to our plans or funded status, it actually reacted, that way as well. That's why we have that 101% for some of our plans. So it's really related, to those investments. Again, I can't really pinpoint exactly like when it's gonna go up or down because even in a good year, it could also our funded stats could also go down because if you there's two things for unfunded liability, right? So for unfunded liability, there's the investment gains and losses. So if there's gains, of course, it's a positive change. If there's loss, it's a negative change. But one thing that we don't really have much say is the non-investment gain, the non-investment UAL basis, which is mostly due to demographics. So demographics, we cannot control that, we cannot change that. CalPERS could not change that. So if there's a difference between the assumptions, and then the actual plan experience, then it's gonna create an unfunded liability. So even in a good year, if those actually change, the demographic, those assumptions change, then there's also a chance that the increase would not be as much, or it could even be flat, or it could even be decreased, depending on the effect of that demographic change.
Better to kind of control your own destiny when you're doing this, so being in a non-pooled fund today, and I realized how many retirees were there over 30 years. I'm not sure, maybe the fact that we have better healthcare or better equipment or something might actually work to our disadvantage, and I don't mean that seriously, but it could affect the long. But I wanted to ask, I thought we were very close to having 150 people now. Am I wrong about that?
No, I think in the safety plan is at 105
Oh.
that we have, and it's
But-
combined.
Oh, you're not,
No, it's per plan.
It's
it's
per
per plan, so
Per
safety
plan, so
versus
safety-
pepper is different. I mean,
I
safety
think
versus
safety
non
versus
safety.
miscellaneous,
But
yeah,
also-
no, you're correct, for.
Because we're like
district
140 some people.
154.
150, okay.
150, well, our budgeted FTE this year is 153, but again, Francine mentioned it's separated for miscellaneous and then safety.
I
So
see.
we're nowhere near the 150
Well, we
threshold.
were, the old limit.
I mean, the old limit is 100, but with the legislation it's 150. So now
That's the
we are
new one.
actually not near, again, unless it retires 50 next year.
So, if there are no more questions, can I get a motion?
Just before we motion, I just point out one thing that the board does control, that we continue to do, is make additional contributions. Keep it in mind that the discount rate is still higher than our investment gain. So that continues to be something that we do control. And I would just kind of encourage the board to continue to stay supportive of that, because we actually can't get higher returns than the discount rate is by reducing our liability. So it continues to be a good decision by the board, but it is something that, relative to this report, that we do control.
But we did cease making contributions, voluntary contributions.
No, we're doing the 10-year voluntary program, so we
Yeah,
have.
what is that?
But we could
What is
exceed,
that?
we could exceed.
It's the
We could
fresh-
do more than that,
Yeah,
but
what's
we have a.
The virtual fresh start.
Yeah, we're clear. Yeah, he's just saying,
The
hey,
virtual
versus us
fresh
doing it
start.
arbitrarily every year,
Oh,
Yeah,
we're doing the 10-year, which is my plan, so we have
Yeah.
a 10-year plan.
we were putting in, we were putting in, sometimes $5 million, $7 million a year. And now the difference is relatively small in terms of the difference. We're paying what, 550,000 per year now extra or
No.
something?
we
No.
can pay more.
Yeah, we're paying more,
Yeah,
we're
it's
paying more. So basically when we did, so for next year, discretionary payments, for unfunded liability based on our policies, about $4.2 million. So it's gonna range still between
It's still
$4 to
high.
$5 million. Again, it's gonna go up and down again, depending on. We did this, we wanted to smooth it out. Because if we didn't actually, I think if you turn on page 188, the first table there, that's the summary of, the additional contributions that the district made. I think until the end of this fiscal year, which is about $72.8 million. So, since inception, or not, yes, since 2009, we've contributed almost $73 million already with, additional, discretionary payments for our UAL. But if we didn't do this, we're probably gonna, and I'm just like trying to estimate it, right? If we didn't do this, our funded status would not be at 84%. We'll probably be at 75 or even lower than the average.
Yeah.
So
Which
I
is
think
really-
the board made a good decision actually to make additional contributions to smooth out any
Yeah.
future like volatility. That's similar to what we've experienced in the past 5 years. And the board is continue to be supportive of the contributions. That's why when we created that pension funding policy last year, arbitrarily, now we have a systematic.
Accept the CalPERS pension annual valuation report as of June 30th, 2024.
I'll second
Motion
that.
been made and seconded. So, roll call.
Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Bloom?
Aye.
Director Swallow?
Aye.
Director Swanton?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye. Motion carries. Moving to item number 9.
Number 9, I got, and if you have questions, we'll go to our subject matter expert, Chief Boyle, who has been working on this feels like for years. This, we're asking the board tonight to approve basically an extension of our contract with SLAC, the Stanford Linear Accelerator Laboratory, for a 5-year contract. We've been protecting the lab for 15 years, have a wonderful relationship with the folks on the laboratory grounds. Normally, we'd be bringing this to Finance Committee, but it's been a challenge, with the government shutdown, working with the Department of Energy, trying to get them to be responsive in a timely manner, which is why it's coming before the board tonight at the December meeting, because our contract expires on December 31st. So in here, there's a list of what our new contract terms are. Director Bloom had reached out asking what were they previously. So just for perspective, as you can see, for 2026, our new annual amount will be $481,000 a year. The amount for the current year for 2025 is $459,500. So going up by a good percentage, and then there'll be an inflator clause in there. So that Elaine developed of 3% a year. So it does a pretty good job in protecting us. I do want to point out one slight modification, and I'll look to either Nicole or to Michelle on this. After we submitted the contract to the board in the board packet, we did get one slight change, and it was on page 291 of your packet.
91?
291.
Okay.
Or page 12 of the that agreement.
It's under
E.
Exhibit E.
Yeah, we have these conditions we have to comply with, called FAR, or Federal Acquisition Regulations. So we have to comply with the federal rules. They've changed quite a bit with this administration. So in any case, we're complying with them, but the first two on there, the service contract labor standards and the fair labor standards, they actually deleted those from that compliance requirement. So
Which
what
one
you
is it?
will approve is the first two under Exhibit E are actually deleted.
Oh,
So we would be approving this without these two
Without those.
provisions,
Without
correct?
those two.
Okay,
So however the motion needs to be, or whether we can just replace that.
yeah. It's FAR
so
53.222.
Yeah, that's it. Again, this is a great contract for us. We have a wonderful relationship. We appreciate the laboratory actually paying us for our services, and we're just asking for the board to approve the new contract.
Well,
If you have questions?
any questions?
Yes, expertise.
I'll move to approve.
You got a question to hand
Oh.
out. Jeff?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the nature of the calls. I know it was trying to do some sort of a prorating of the calls and so forth and so, but are the nature of the calls that are at SLAC different than the general nature of calls, or?
They certainly can be. I'm gonna let Chief Coyle address that since he's been here for ages.
We're gonna let the dinosaur in the room.
They could be very unique, and then they could be super run-of-the-mill medical calls.
We do have a fairly high instance of medical calls there. There's a post-surgery rehab building there just inside the gate, which is from Sanford Hospital. Anywhere, obviously. We also have a high instance of fire alarms. They have an awful lot of alarms there due to the work they do. So we did go on a significant number of various types of alarms.
Meaning false?
Heat detectors and laser beam detectors and all kinds of stuff there, so we get fairly frequent fire alarm calls there.
And the other, couple of questions, but then, there was a time where there was a concern about the nature of the communications there because of the concrete structure and so forth. I don't know if we've resolved that and if that's an extra cost for us that ought to be considered here or not.
I'm gonna let Chief Coyle resolve it, but it's not an extra cost, and I don't remember the terminology we were talking about today.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. It was a concern for us for the safety of our personnel and in the underground concrete, which can be feeder, leaker, leaky coax, which is similar to tunnel rescue and anything else. So underground activities, so they have installed that. So we do have communications throughout the tunnel available to us.
And the cost of that would be at the minimum, or they did it
They did
themselves.
it, yeah, I don't know what it cost. I'm assuming it was not cheap, but it's been, yeah.
And then, I just wondered if there's any special equipment that we need, again, that would be a cost item because of the issue of radioactivity or any of the nature of the materials that are in there. Is there anything we have to buy, we have to furnish to make it safe for our firefighters that adds cost?
Not that I'm aware of it in the last 15 years. It's engine 4, truck 4. They go up there and do their job.
Okay, thank you.
Rob?
No, Chuck had mentioned the radio communications aspect. Are there any dead spots on the facility itself?
So there is
Where we can't
one of
communicate.
the repeater sites for the no longer Firenet 6, but the ALS JPA is on their property, and it's a great one because it has a direct line of sight to the Easter Cross at the top of Woodside. So it's a great part of the web that keeps us all in communication. And that site had been dark for an unknown amount of time. And Slack graciously gave us a few strands of their fiber from a nearby building. And AT&T did that for us for free. And they ran fiber to that site, and we are back up on Command 11 and Command 51 and Patrol 1 are back up at that site.
So you're
That's us,
satisfied?
and some sections of Woodside as well.
So you're satisfied with that communication aspect?
Yep.
Okay, thank
And
you.
there is another topic, but there is a plan with the ALS JPA to upgrade all of that radio equipment. And so that the current list that you have in the contract is what is currently sitting there. But that will be, it is on the plan to be upgraded.
Great, thank you.
At whose expense?
No. Pardon me?
Oh, the radio equipment upgrades through the ALS JPA will be through the ALS JPA monies, yeah.
Is there a motion now to approve this particular item?
I'll move to approve the 5-year contract renewal with SWAC, National Accelerator Laboratory, effective January 1st, 2026. Sounds 52.222-41 and
In Exhibit E.
yeah, FAR 52.222-43 in Exhibit E.
Motion been made, is there a second? Rob, second, roll call?
I'm sorry, I was writing something. Who seconded?
Rob.
Oh, thank you. Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Bloom?
Aye.
Director Crowell?
Aye.
Director Solana?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye, motion carried. Moving on to item number 10, or excuse me.
Yeah.
Item number 10.
10 is me and with taken by the board. So this is one of the outstanding chief's reports that this popped up onto my to-do list back in May of 2025. I think the primary or the root reason for it showing up was there had been conversations about expansion at the Palo Alto Airport. And it was causing some concern amongst our board about just the additional risk. And so that was what caused the conversation. I went back and reviewed the board meeting so I could actually listen to all the different questions or concerns that came up. I may not have hit them all, but if there's some to-dos, that's fine. I can come back with some additional information at a future board meeting. I will not go through and read the entire report, but I will kind of summarize the different sections of it. First of all, was just a brief review of what we had talked about back in January 2024, because the question came up, who has jurisdictional authority on the bay for rescues? And the answer, from Hanson Bridget was kind of like many different agencies, right? I will say Menlo Park has some, every fire agency has some kind of responsibility. Some of them have chosen not to purchase equipment that allows them to actually respond. We have the resources, we've purchased the airboats and jet skis. And so that when we have somebody that's down in distress, whether it's in our jurisdiction or an adjacent one, we generally are responding to those because we have the equipment. Not everyone has the resources. Palo Alto, City of Palo Alto does not south of the Dumbarton Bridge. It's us in Fremont that have resources and nobody else does. At least not official ones. So we respond into there because it's the right thing to do, because we have the resources and the training. And so we respond into the bay. Other agencies also have responsibility, including Coast Guard, possibly the sheriff, maybe others, but we're going to be responding. Just kind of an update on the status of the Palo Alto Airport expansion has been in the news. I talked about briefly in here that there was quite a bit of pushback related to airport expansion for a variety of reasons, environmental, additional traffic, and the city council shut that down. There still is some ongoing improvements there. They recently received a $2.5 million grant through the FAA to provide 24/7 automated weather. Really very little impact on additional traffic. There's still, as you follow it, the community is always concerned when something's happening there. But I think in general, the expectation is that it shouldn't impact activities there. If anything, it should make it a little bit safer. Just there's some questions about, what does it look like when there's an incident on the Palo Alto Airport? Who has responsibility for that? And so we chatted with Palo Alto Fire. Responsibility for all fires and incidents. Really, I meant fire-related incidents. Obviously, if there's an active shooter there's going to be law enforcement or something like that. But Palo Alto has responsibility for that. They have plans in place for an actual aircraft down or an aircraft in distress, just like we have our alarms. And if something happens and it goes beyond their capacity, they start through their system requesting automatic aid, additional alarms. I will say, if an airplane goes down and it goes into the bay, they very quickly make a call to their dispatch, making a request for mutual aid from Coast Guard, and knowing that Coast Guard is going to be forever to respond, and they probably won't even be able to get their boats in there. But their dispatch will call our dispatch and then dispatch us. Is basically how it happens.
So that would be like cross-county communicate, like cross-county.
They could call
Alameda
Fremont,
County.
yeah.
Okay.
They can call Fremont. They can, I don't know if, but I would imagine they would, knowing that.
Yeah.
Their dispatch center. So it's a radio call to their dispatch center. The dispatch center will call whoever dispatches for Fremont, and then public safety communications.
Any other question? Any question? You finishing?
No, I've got a couple more sections here. Just I talked a little bit about all the training that we did. It's here for you because that was a question that came up. We generally don't do a lot of joint training. We do some. And then just the availability of water rescue sources and how are those staffed. This is identifies ours. South of the Dumbarton Bridge, it's really us in Fremont. There aren't any others. If it's north of the bridge, you have a number of agencies that have resources, including Redwood City, South City, other things across the bay. Nobody, except for the Coast Guard, does full-time staff with those resources. I could be wrong about the city of San Francisco. I know they have a fireboat there. Whether that's full-time staff or cross staff, I don't know, but they're likely not going to respond down into our jurisdiction. It also talked about, the sheriff has some responsibilities, but they're generally their dive team, slow to respond, usually volunteer, and more often than not, it's doing some kind of recovery, body recovery and stuff like that. So, and then, that goes back to the conversation that we've been having that, even if the sheriff had primary responsibility, the fact that they don't have resources and they're not staffed has caused us to provide some staffing and resources because there's a gap. And I think we find that with our district and our personnel is that if some need is not being fulfilled, we're generally looking for ways to serve our community and address some of those issues. And then I have my personal opinion there on whether or not we should be reimbursed for water rescue responses, and that's just goes back to, our past practices. We haven't sought reimbursement. And it goes back to that neighbor helping neighbor with automatic and mutual aid, where generally agencies, neighbors has a need, and they're available, we will help. As we saw in the 2700 Middlefield fire. And there are times on our water resources when we are getting reimbursed, like right now, with our OES, our FEMA deployment, and we have water rescue resources up there. They're getting fully reimbursed through the FEMA reimbursement process. So I will stop talking and see if there's some clarification or more questions.
Rob, you had a question.
Yeah, no, the reason why I've been pounding this for, I don't know, over a year, is because on page 310 or 222, you identified, my huge concern was we were unable to locate search and rescue plan for San Mateo County. There isn't. And that was originally why I kept pounding this for over a year, is that there isn't any. And maybe it falls within, as you said, the Board of Supervisors to make the necessary plan and authorizing the San Mateo County Sheriff to do maybe a full-time search and rescue group that's there. Presently, I know that the county does not have a permanent search and rescue boat that's manned. Boat 77 is engine 77. So that's the reason, and very well written report, Chief. Pretty much covered everything. I've gone through your, we finally found out that Palo Alto Airport is owned by for a while. The Palo Alto Fire Department has no rescue boats the way we have it. Coast Guard does have the ultimate responsibility, but in the marsh areas or wetlands, they don't have the equipment or the facilities the way we do with our search and rescue boats. As I said, we had Airboat 77 that was 77. And the finding, well, basically the funding, we're doing about $225,000 a year, but yet we're a FEMA Task Force 3 also. So that training kind of doubles for what our actual country or our US response would be. So I think we've covered everything, Chief. I think the report's well done, and I think the last thing that we need to, as a board, maybe, is to have Office of Emergency Services come up with a rescue plan for the bay. And whose ultimate responsibility will it be? Well, we know the Coast Guard will have, because they have a full-time complement of individuals, but they don't really address our needs here, other than if it's in open water. So I just think we should push for an actual search and rescue plan devised by the county and see who the ultimate responsibilities are for not only our area south of the Dumbarton Bridge, but for the whole bay. And with Palo Alto Airport, what was it, 1999, Dan, where they had that major airplane crash in East Palo Alto?
Well, since I've been here forever, I think it was,
Probably.
Well, I thought you were.
I was driving engine one, so it was probably around 2005.
Yeah,
Well, that was,
2007, 2008, somewhere around there.
No, it's later than earlier.
well, we should have called Harold to come in and tell us about it.
I think it was 2005 as a guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
somewhere.
had an airplane crash that, affected our. So, we're in the fight, and I just think, we need to have a policy and procedure and SOP relative to that, so.
Hey, Rob,
Any
just-
other
just
questions?
One
Oh.
minor point of correction, the Coast Guard is no different in the responsibility between open water versus bay water. It has to do with the distance is really what it is, where their station is located up near the Golden Gate.
Oh,
No different when you head down the San Mateo coast in a boat, you have very delayed response from boat resources from the Coast Guard. Unless they happen to be training, you predominantly depend on helicopters. So it's no different down here where it just happens we're 20 miles down from their stations. So which 20 miles in a boat, especially at night, is a long distance. Even for the Coast Guard.
I spoke to the executive officer at the Coast Guard, and they said they do have the rescue, responsibility, but they are a little scary about going into the wetlands because of the rescue swimmers that they have, and they don't have any airboats.
They don't have an airboat, yeah.
No, so
They have.
so
boats
it's
that
kind of like on,
require
yeah,
a certain draft.
it's kind of like on us, so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gary.
any other questions, Chuck?
That was
Mercy?
Chief, I'm an old Boy Scout, and I think I believe firmly in doing the right thing in the moment and so forth. But I think these agencies are not devoid of resources. I mean, they have Palo Alto has gymnasiums and golf courses and things that the residents benefit from and non-residents don't benefit from. And to the extent they choose to not buy an airboat and instead have lower fees for their swimming pools for residents, I don't know that we're being fair to our taxpayers, and I was elected by the taxpayers to represent them. I'm really talking about the long term here, but it seems to me reasonable that if we're going to be buying this equipment, if we're going to be taking a leadership role there, that we probably ought to be reimbursed for, I'm not talking about a plane crash, I'm talking about almost routine kinds of needs. A sailboat turns over and can't right itself or something like that happens all the time. So I understand what you're saying, you're not gonna let somebody die out there, but in the long run, you could actually fix that. So we're getting reimbursed for what we do, and I think it's fair to do that. Certainly, I mean, we don't get the benefit from the ambulances that Palo Alto has. And I'm not begrudging Palo Alto anything, I'm just saying that, yeah, we all, share and share alike, but it's not sharing alike. We pay and they don't, and we're not getting it from these agencies that don't have any resources on the bay. We don't get anything from them either. So it's a little like the county and so forth. We're giving to the county up in Weekend Acres and so forth, but the county isn't giving us anything. And I don't know, I think we're not representing well our taxpayers when we do that.
Any other questions, comments? If not, I ask for a motion.
There's no motion.
Yeah, we're just
There's a-
discussing it.
Oh, man, we finished the motion. Okay, good. All right, thank you, Chief. Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 11, this grand occasion. So, we have, time to elect a new president, vice president for, calendar year 2026. The way the process is gonna work is that we take one at a time and we're gonna do it board president first, and then we take the vice president. So at this point in time, the nominations for president of the board of directors for Menlo Park for 2026. Are there any nominations?
We'd not like to nominate our current vice president, Virginia James Rowley, to be president this year.
A nomination been made for the vice president to become president for 2026. Can we get a roll call vote on that, Michelle?
Director Bernstein?
I'm going to abstain. I'd like to have the minutes reflect that, I think leadership roles on the board should be rotated, and we're not doing that. I don't want to participate in that kind of system.
Director Bloom?
You want an I or a 4, or I'm not sure.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, obviously you nominated her,
Yes,
so,
yes.
but still. Thank you, Director Crawley.
Aye.
Director Solano.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye. Motion carried. Welcome to our new board presidents for 2026. And now we're moving to the election of vice president for calendar year 2026. And I would like to nominate Rob Solano.
I'll second it.
There is no second.
Oh, sorry.
Michelle, roll call.
Okay, 1 minute. Director Bernstein.
Aye.
Director Bloom.
Aye.
Director Nye.
Nay.
Okay, thank you. And Director Crawley.
Aye, nay.
Director Solano.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye. Motion carried. So we have new vice president, Rob Solano, for calendar year 2026. Welcome aboard, Rob. Okay, I think that's pretty much it for the election of officers. We'll move on to exit out of our agenda. Were any proposed items for agenda items?
We have the one from Director Bernstein. Number 12.
Number 12? Oh,
Yeah. But we kind of what we do for the responsibility.
okay, so
I move that we put that on future agenda.
I'll second it, Ayo. So if I can, second.
Yes.
So the motion been made and second, made by Gary, second by myself. Michelle?
Director Bernstein.
Aye.
Director Bloom.
Aye.
Director Crawley.
Aye.
Director Solano.
Aye.
Director Jones.
Aye. Any new proposed agenda items? Item number 13. Hearing none, then
The
we'll,
minutes reflect that we're not increasing the list on the last month of the year.
so noted. So now we are moving into item number 14, which is committee report. First item on the agenda is emergency preparedness. Rob, do you have anything to report on emergency preparedness committee?
Well, you're the chair.
I think the chief have already made notation of it in his report.
Yeah, we're continuing with the grant type situation, and we went through we still need to do a little bit more discussion, relative to what direction the board wants to go into, relative to that, or if they want any type of a grant situation, or to leave it to the chief senior staff in order to make those determinations.
Report has been made. I don't have anything. Facility,
Facilities did not meet.
facility to meet, human resource,
Nothing.
nothing on the human resource, finance.
Finance, I believe.
Does that mean it didn't meet?
HR did not meet.
Okay.
And I believe finance, we covered everything.
Beat it up
Finance
today.
reviewed in more detail was covered here at the board meeting.
All right. Liaison report, Town of Atherton.
Town applicant, the regular meeting did not have anything. I would note that at their study session, which I did not attend, I understand the topic of speed bumps came up yet again. Back predominantly on their current design of them, because they're both extremely loud for the neighbor adjoining them. They get to hear the suspension and the things bouncing out of pickup trucks. I would agree with that assessment of their current speed bumps. They knock your fillings out basically. And so they have taken that back to study it again. And my only recommendation is to make sure that our prevention bureau is their city manager to get our input into that. That's all I have to report.
Thank you. For the city of East Palo Alto, I have one item that I want to mention. I went to the special meeting I had last night. The JPA talked about the levees, improvements on the levees both Menlo Park as well as East Palo Alto. And one item of something that's to be noted or keep an eye on is that when the levies are, when they get the funds to build the levees and when they start to work, the road that goes from on Bay Road that goes out to where we were had our I wouldn't say retreat, but study session. They are there will be that I assume how the launching of the boats that we have will go down. They have to go down that road, and so they are trying to consider now what type of, because the levee is going to be probably go up another 10 feet from where it is right now, and so they're trying to decide whether to put a gate of wall that you can let down, and how the boats then, if it get hauled out, how they're going to have access out of it. And it's really at a developmental stage right now to determine what type of, whether it be a gate itself, but if or bring down this wall.
How's it gonna pay for it?
Funds now from the previous bills, they had government through FEMA and to make that happen. What's going to be convenient for us to, if we have to get out of there,
Exactly.
to rescue. So that's all so they're still working on it. They, if there's any input that you may have, I would suggest that you know Margaret, is it Margaret or Margaret, to talk to her about
For the creek.
for the creek.
Yeah.
They're doing the Safer Bay project.
Yeah.
Warrant early next year, if not January, February, they want to try to come. The federal government.
Robert,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
would you like to report on the reorganization of the council and the mayor at all?
You can report on it.
Well, no,
I don't.
okay, well,
I don't.
if you don't think it's relevant to us, then we don't need to.
Did you go?
I didn't go, but
Did you go?
No, I didn't go. I know what went on.
Yeah.
There is a reorganization for the city of East Palo Alto. The mayor, Martha Barrios, her term ended, and so now there's new mayor, which is Webster Lincoln, and the vice mayor is Ruben Abriga. And beyond that, I'm not going to get into the politics.
Who is the mayor?
Yeah. So move on to Menlo Park.
Yes, so I have been pretty busy with them. On December 2nd, I went to their meeting where the city council decided to put on the agenda the downtown parking lot issues. And the council decided to put that on the November 2026 general election ballot. I made a public comment there because I felt like some residents were downplaying the public safety aspect and the accessibility for our firefighters and emergency responders to get in there. So kind of also setting the stage to do the primary response route presentation. So I mentioned that as well, because that we're going to do this, at least try to districts around when we first proposed this, like probably 5 years, actually before COVID, so before 2020. I went to the reorganization for Menlo Park, and the new mayor is Betsy Nash and the new vice mayor is Jennifer Weiss. Let's see, I went to, I went to an event actually, and this is something for you, Mark, just saw Chief Pucci there, who's the chair of your chiefs group, and he had mentioned to me that there had been no word about, this whole consolidation issue. So if you hear of anything, he's also gonna let me know, but he'll probably let you know before he lets me know, so you can keep us informed of any new development that comes up, that would be great. There was okay, so then, at Station 4, I heard from someone who was behind a Waymo car that the car was in the crosswalk, or not crosswalk, where it says to keep clear so that the fire engines can come out, and was just sitting there. So I don't know if we're working with Waymo or how do we get that? Right, I mean, so I don't even know how, you probably know the technology better than I do, but anyway, we should probably give some input because we have those keep clear areas in front of a lot of our stations, and especially the busy ones where they should probably, these Waymos should keep clear of that area. So I don't know who we're supposed to talk to, but I got a couple of people who gave me that feedback. Right,
Waymo has a public safety contact process
okay,
for
well,
things that they're doing that affect public safety.
yeah, so we need to be on their radar, especially on these major primary response routes. I went to the county's first tree lighting ceremony, so that was actually quite good. And then today there was that incident in West Menlo Park at St. Dennis Church, and I just wanted to thank, the firefighters who were staging for that area. That the incident ended in a very tragic way. But they were there and they were working very well with police and the coroner's office. So I just wanted to thank them for all. So the incident was that there was an armed gunman who was at St. Dennis Church, so Montrada and Phillipsburg were both locked down. And they actually put up road block areas around the church, and they used the staging area, they used this gas station on Alameda, Dallas Pulgas, and AV as a staging area for both police and fire. And near my house, there was an ambulance staging area, so AMR was parked in front of my house, and then just around the corner, the ambulance was waiting there. So it turned out that I think, the guy took his own life. And so that happened soon after, and then everyone dispersed. But for a while, a lot of parents were worried and all that, but I just wanted to let you know, Mark, that our team was really good, as much as they could be, mainly because this was a police department incident, but we were there for that. So, I got a lot of texts, and so they were very happy that everything was under control. And I think that is it.
Thank you. San Mateo County District 3.
Nothing to report.
San Mateo County District 4. I don't have anything to report either. San Mateo County Pre-Hospital Emergency Medical Joint
Well,
Powers Authority.
the chief met with the executive chiefs group. We did not meet, elected people.
Did you go, did they have a meeting?
So,
No meeting.
No meeting.
There is a plan for January.
Yeah, because they have to do the reorg. It's the one meeting they have per
There's
year.
not the concept of a plan for a meeting.
It's the one meeting they
Maybe.
have. It's the.
No concept of.
Rob, do you want to be at that
Okay.
meeting?
So, the San Francisco Creek Joint Powers Authority,
No, nothing.
nothing. Reports of directors, we'll start to our left and go to the right.
Nothing.
Gary, Joe?
Yes, I wanted to say I was very positively encouraged by the election of the vice president of the board as a potential change in the direction of this board. So I was encouraged by that. And had I known that was going to happen, I would not have abstained in the election of the president. I would have voted for. I can't change my vote now, I don't believe, but if I could change my vote, I'd like to, but I don't think that's possible. But I just wanted to explain that I would have voted for it, and I'm pleased that there at least is the glimmer of change here, and I appreciate that.
You got any report for Chuck? You want to report?
That was my report.
Oh, okay.
Can I just make a quick comment?
Sure. Go for it.
So Chief, I just want you to know that the feedback I'm getting from the community is our firefighters, you know, the safety crew, and also our community, like with, you know, Heather and Amandeep, are really representing the fire district well in the community. So if you can just let them know, you know, I mean, just, you know, out of the, like the Halloween thing and the pancake breakfast, I mean, people are really noticing that we're in the community and they appreciate how our staff carry themselves. So I think that's great. So please thank them for us. Thank you.
Rob?
Yeah, on November 19th, I met with Springline, with the two developers, and Laura Tuchel, who represents them in their advertising group. I was impressed with some of the other projects that are going on here with the magazine project. And I attended the December 2nd Menlo Park council meeting when the downtown group presented, they had previously presented the petition to put it on the ballot. City council voted to put it on the ballot, but Virginia made a representation that she was neutral in this.
Yeah, I didn't take a stand.
And you know, it sounded like when you made your presentation that you were representing the fire board. And I want to go on the record now is that I'm for the petition. I'm for the people to make the decision as to what will happen to the downtown area. So and to save us taxpayers about $330,000 than to put it on the ballot. So they could have accepted it as such, and they didn't. So I'm a little disappointed in our council with all the people, over 3,000 signatures, and people going to those council meetings and the business group trying to go forward. And, you know, we do need high density housing, but there are other sections, and I'm for the group. I did sign the petition, and I think the council should have put their petition in operation and could have saved us that large amount of taxpayers' money. So
Can I add to that, Rob?
thank you.
Right, your report.
Oh,
Thank
can I
you.
just add to that really quickly, Rob? Because there were three choices, right? So yeah, there was the putting it on as an ordinance, doing the special election, doing the general election
They could have put it on.
as
they
an
could have voted
ordinance.
for it.
Yeah, that's what I meant as an ordinance.
We could have saved us almost $500,000.
I took a
Okay,
neutral stance because the board hadn't taken a stance on it, and I was representing the fire district at the time.
So you finished with your report, Rob?
Excuse me?
You finished with your report?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. The lateness of the hour, I'm gonna combine, my report, director's report with president report. And, only thing I wanna say, thank you very much for tolerating me for this year. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
You got, you know, a
Thanks,
great
Robert.
audience, a patient one. I appreciate that very much. Michelle, thank you for the nice, selecting a nice plaque. It's, really heavy, and so I gotta get back in the gym to move that thing around. Steve, thank you for your kind words, yesterday. And if, all stay the same, we'll hook up here, next month. In January, kick off the new year with the new president and vice president. And hopefully we continue to have a great year. And I think I want to say happy holidays to everyone here. And don't eat too much cake and ice cream.
And have some of the peppermint bark.
And have some of Virginia's peppermint bark. Thank you very much. So that there's nothing else to report, I'll call for adjournment.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Rose.
Okay, thank you.
Michelle, can you remind me?
Get